Right, this morning, should sexism towards women be treated as a hate crime in the same way as racism and homophobia? In Nottinghamshire, misogyny has been classified as a hate crime since April. And we've discovered that so far police have investigated around 30 cases. Misogyny can include things like unwanted sexual advances, wolf whistling, verbal abuse, or taking pictures without consent. Crucially, those kind of incidents on their own aren't a crime, but when coupled with another offence, like harassment, for example, it now gets recorded as a hate crime in Nottinghamshire. We've learned that police forces across the country are meeting later this week to look at the possibility of rolling the scheme out in other areas. Jean Mackenzie has been gauging reaction. We played you her full report an hour ago. Here's a short extract, and it contains some language right from the beginning that some of you may find offensive or you may not want young children to hear. And we'll hear from some of those involved in the scheme in a moment. But first, Jean's report.
I've been called a slut, a whore.
There seems to be a lot more groping, especially if you're in a club or a bar. It was just so offensive. I was just like, I'm not flattered, thank you.
And then when they're calling you dogs and slags and everything, it's not nice.
Women are pretty used to being shouted at in the street. But when does the unwanted attention become a crime? Is it a wolf whistle, a catcall, or a sexual or aggressive threat?
Get the dishes done. Lasses go for lads, lads go for lasses, and that's it.
Hey up, sweetheart. That's about it, really. Bit of a whistle.
There have been a lot of headlines about this. The big one that people have drawn on is wolf whistling. Is a wolf whistle a hate crime?
It wouldn't itself be classed as a hate crime. It would probably constitute as part of a potential hate incident.
I was walking through this beautiful wooded cut-through on my way to work one day, alone. I encountered three largish young lads about here. We passed each other there. One of them yelled back at me, "You look like you need a big fat in your mouth."
Wow, that was quite shocking.
Yeah, which was horrible.
How did you feel once you'd left the situation and it settled in?
I'm initially quite vulnerable and scared. Once I'd got out into the open, I guess my mind was more able to let in the feelings of disgust that you inevitably feel when someone says something so sexually aggressive at you.
When I was using a disabled toilet and I tried to get out and I was blocked from getting out by someone that very aggressively and persistently was asking for sex, and he wouldn't actually let me leave.
I was just walking on the pavement and a group of boys that must have been like 17, 18 that just blocked my path. Asking for my number, he kept saying, "No, just give us a number and then you can go." I just wanted to go home, just wanted to be left alone.
I would get a lot of comments going, "Oh baby, look at your legs." And then you also get the more extreme cases of stalking and being followed.
You're not reporting these things. Why not?
I previously didn't really think that anyone would take me seriously. Now that the changes have come into place in Nottingham, I feel much more confident to call the police.
With us now, two people who've been involved in bringing about the change in Nottinghamshire. Loretta Trickett, who's a criminologist and helped Nottinghamshire Police implement the change. Martha Jeffcoat trained officers on how to recognise and deal with misogynist crimes. Also with us, Mike Buchanan. He's leader of the Justice for Men and Boys, which is a political party that advocates for men's and boys' rights and opposes feminism. Welcome all of you. Thank you very much for coming on the programme. Loretta, first of all, now that the police record misogynistic incidents under hate crime, what difference do you think it will make in Nottinghamshire?
Well, I think what it does is it encourages women to come forward to report some of these incidents, which previously were covered by other areas of the law, like harassment laws, etc. But quite a lot of them weren't reported because women didn't feel that much would be done. And I think what it does is it recognises the commonality between the different types of experiences that women have. If you look at hate crime, it's about hostility that's directed at somebody's personal characteristics. And what it does, I think, is it labels the misogyny that is behind some of these actions in a way that we can better target resources on where they're happening and actually look at strategies to deal with it. So I think in that respect, it gives a clearer picture of actually what's happening in these sorts of incidents and crimes.
You were shaking your head, Mike Buchanan,
Yes.
as the rhetoric it was speaking.
Yes. I don't think any sane person could believe that wolf whistling is evidence of misogyny. Only feminists could believe such a ridiculous thing.
Why?
Because it's a sign of a man's admiration for a woman. It's not hatred.
Can we just say at the moment, we've never at any point said that we're going to be prosecuting wolf whistling as a
No, I
hate
understand
crime.
that, but it is presented as evidence of misogyny, and I'm saying it is absolutely ridiculous.
If it's accompanied with some other behaviour, yes. But
on its own,
and a lot of women don't.
No, I understand that.
But
but I mean, I'd like to introduce a word that I don't think I've ever heard on the BBC: misandry, the hatred of men as a class, and that is far more commonplace than misogyny. So, for example, here we talk about a criminal justice system or the police force that is using taxpayers' money to pursue men, while the criminal justice system is incredibly anti-male. 5 out of 6 men in British prisons today wouldn't be there if men were sentenced as leniently as women.
That's perhaps a discussion for another item on the programme, but there is a fair point about why don't Nottinghamshire Police record misandry under a hate crime?
I would say, I think the really important thing about this sort of hate crime being specifically for men targeting this behaviour towards women is a really, really great thing in the sense of everybody knows there's a problem with women experiencing gender-based violence, whether it be in the home or in the street, and then reporting them reporting that is obviously very, very low in terms of them experiencing it. And I think for Nottinghamshire Police to say, this is for you, we recognise what you experienced on the street. Nottinghamshire Police were actually responding to the community saying that they were having problems on the street with men saying and doing things to them publicly. Sends a very clear message about the relationship that the Nottinghamshire Police want to have with women. So I think that's a really, really key thing about this being for women. It also reflects the rates at which women experience these things and the way in which women live their lives. I walk home with keys in between my knuckles, with pepper spray. My friends have rape alarms. I am yet to meet a man who carries a rape alarm. I'm not saying that male rape doesn't happen, but I think that this hate crime work really, really addresses the way in which women live their lives.
Just leading on from that, from Martha, I think what I would say
Mr.
is...
Buchanan is shaking his head at almost everything you were saying
Yeah.
there. Do talk to Martha Jeffcoat.
Yeah.
This is one of the women who trained officers on how to recognise and deal with misogynistic crimes.
Yeah, I've got to say, Martha, the idea that misogyny is somehow a common problem faced by women is nonsensical. We had in our 2015 General Election Manifesto 20 areas, where the human rights of men and boys are assaulted by the state's actions and inactions. And I defy you to tell me one area where the human rights of women and girls specifically as a class in Britain today are assaulted.
This area of street harassment is a cornerstone of violence against women and girls, because what it does is it enables strange men to come up to women and girls. We've had incidents against school children, school girls being targeted in school uniform, incidents against pregnant women, and what I would say is it limits women's freedom to move around the city, and they take precautions, as Martha was talking about, and that comes against the backdrop of what we know about sexual violence against women and girls and also domestic violence. So it's this view about objectifying women and girls. And you say that, Mike, but actually if you speak to most young women and girls, they will be able to recount some of these experiences. Female students in the city, they will be able to.
Because we never talk about violence against men and boys.
But that's what this initiative is about.
We know from hundreds and hundreds of studies of domestic violence that...
Where are these hundreds of studies?
Martin Fiebert. I mean, I can show you these. Anyone
But
who goes on the
there are
website.
hundreds of studies on violence against women, hundreds and hundreds of studies. But this is a street initiative
please,
against women,
I
isn't it,
didn't
not
interrupt
against
you,
men.
so please let me finish the point. Hundreds of studies show that women are at least as physically aggressive towards opposite-sex partners as men. The idea that domestic violence is a gendered issue has been known to be nonsense for decades.
May I just take this back to the misogynistic hate crime point? I think it's really important just to say that misogynistic hate crimes happen to me hundreds of times, and not once has it happened in front of a male. So it seems bizarre to me that men would know, and you know, I sympathise with men on this point, what the rates of misogynistic hate crime are. But it doesn't happen in front of them. It's never once happened to me when I've been walking with my father or my boyfriend. It's a very, very hidden type of harassment.
But if you have accurate records, which you're now hoping to have as a result of this initiative, then you would have official figures, then perhaps you may be able to see the scale of the problem. But
then perhaps we should also be recording hate crimes against men. And some of the people earlier on...
That's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Then why is there no initiative about misandry in Nottinghamshire?
Because it's not been brought forward by members of the public in the same way as this issue against women, because it's well known that women, so men are subjected to street harassment, but it doesn't take this sexualised form in the way that it does against women. So because of that, this initiative was actually led by women reporting back about what action they would like to see taken. We didn't have that feedback from men on the same way, because you don't see street harassment of men taking the same form.
No, because men, you know, men accept that there are challenges in life that have to be overcome. This constant presentation of women as special snowflakes who need the state to somehow sort out
I don't think anyone is trying to suggest that, Mike.
You know, well, I mean,
Nobody is trying to suggest that women are all vulnerable. What we're saying is that there's certain behaviour that takes place sexualised against women and girls on a habitual basis. And we're not talking about all men here. And what I want to be clear about is that we can learn from men who choose not to do this. We have had support from men and you know, young men, middle-aged men in Nottingham for this initiative. So we're not trying to say that all men engage in this sort of behaviour, but there are a significant minority that do.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Buchanan. A final thought. We've been told that police forces are going to discuss this week in England and Wales to consider rolling it out elsewhere across the country. Why do you say that would be a good idea, assuming you think it would be a good idea?
I think it would be, of course, a good idea. I think in terms of the sort of harassment and abuse that women face on the streets, which is covered by misogynistic hate crime, it's very similar to other minority groups. It's very similar to homophobic harassment, racist harassment, and therefore, in my opinion, it needs to be a hate crime categorised like all others.
OK. Thank you very much, all of you. Thanks for coming on the programme. Thanks for your time.